In conversation with Timothy M. Bennett, T.M. Bennett began his passion for writing at a young age while his mother homeschooled him. He did not wish to write boring journal entries for school and asked whether he could write fictional stories. Ever since, Timothy M. Bennett has maintained an active imagination and is usually up for trying things labeled adventurous. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure and joy to have on the show today, Timothy M. Bennett. How are you doing, Timothy?
I'm good. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, it's quite lovely to have you on the show today, really. I'm quite excited. We're going to be having a conversation around your works.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
I love
yeah,
YouTube and I like hearing some of your interviews.
absolutely. Thank you for coming on, actually. Yeah. So, Timothy, could you tell us about your book, The Trouble with Dragons and Strangers, which is the fourth book in a series of the Star Sky book series? And I would like to ask you, how does this book come about? What inspired you to write The Trouble with Dragons and Strangers? And that's such an amazing title, even to name a book, really.
Thank you. The inspiration for The Trouble with Dragons and Strangers kind of grew out of just me getting back into reading. I went
Mm.
through several years where I really didn't read at all. And then I rediscovered my favorite series, which is the Little Britches series by Ralph Moody.
Oh.
And then I was at work one day and I just had this thought kind of fly through my mind. And and it was just this picture of this boy, this preteen, sitting in space with this creature. And I was like,
Mm.
okay, what's he doing there? How did he get there? What's the story behind? Why is he sitting in space just thinking? And The Trouble with Dragons and Strangers, it kind of portrays like a preteen, pre-adolescent as he's feeling a bit overshadowed by specifically his father. So he's feeling a
Mm.
bit overshadowed, and that's kind of his journey of growing and exploring and figuring out who he is and how people come around him to help him
Yeah.
further figure out stuff.
Yeah, that actually sounds quite lovely to me. Sounds quite interesting. Thank you for sharing. And then you have a follow-up series to the book that's in the name of A Journey of Unknown Skies. And I'm not sure if these books are the ones you showed me when we first start our conversation. I'm not sure if you have a physical copy there with you. But then picking up from the first book series and without giving much information away, could we have a sneak of what we'd expect in terms of teams picking up a journey of unknown skies?
As I briefly touched on, it's kind of a coming of age, but more so than anything, it's
Oh,
figuring out who you are and overcoming what's in front of you. The
mm,
Trouble with the Dragons and Strangers really has, uh, I guess you'd call it a motif or symbolism of these
yeah,
external or natural storms that happen. But as the series progresses, those storms start moving inwards of the main character, and he
oh,
has to start dealing with tough questions. And I specifically think of stuff when I was the main character's age, just trying to figure out, okay, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I believe? What is it that I feel motivated by? What is it that I want to do? And the main character, Jax, he has all these different questions kind of piled on him as he really discovers and has multiple adventures in this alternate universe.
yeah, that's amazing. And, picking up from what you said, this just pop up in my head. I want to ask you, because I know it might be a bit tricky actually, but then I love to, tempt. Well, I said use the word tempt authors by asking them, do they have a particular character in their book? Let's talk about your series novel now as a point of view. Do you have a particular character in your series novel that you love dearly? And do you have one that you particularly hate? I don't know if there's one is which is your favorite, another one which is your least favorite. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure. I mean, most of the characters that are main characters, I tend to like them.
Yeah.
There's a few characters. See, how do I say this without giving away too much? Um, there's a few characters who are the antagonists that
Mm,
them as a person, like if they were in real life, yeah, I wouldn't be around them at all. Um, but they don't hold as much as predominant place as the other characters.
mm,
The antagonistic characters are alongside the antagonistic questions and the figuring out life and just the internal conflict that Jax,
yeah.
the main character, has.
Oh, that's amazing. I love hearing your take on that. I know it's a very tricky question to ask, actually. But you'll be like, yeah, I love all of my characters, this, blah, blah, blah. But then, as someone who loves characterization, I'm a huge fan of characterization when it comes to reading novel. I love characterization wholeheartedly. And that sometimes when I read a novel, I'll be like, yeah, this is my favorite character. This is the one I love the most. And this is the one I
Yeah.
hate. Yeah. But then when I hate a character, I still love to see how they're developed in the next series. It's something
Yep.
bound of characterization. So thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. That's quite lovely to know. And also, you also have a unicorn named Nothing. And unicorn named Nothing was written for your 5-year-old daughter. How do your kids influence your stories? Would you like to talk about that too?
Oh, absolutely. So I've got the Little Mermaid times three. I have three daughters, and one day we were, and my middle daughter, she was
Yeah.
5 at the time, the one I wrote the story
Oh.
for, riding on my shoulders, and she goes, "Tell me a story." So I started telling her a unicorn name, and when I wasn't able to finish it on that hiking trip, but when we finished hiking, I was like, I need to finish that out. I need to write it. So I wrote it. Uh, the whole plot and everything came together, and then I ended up recording it, so it's available as an audiobook as well.
Mm. That's great. That's
And
amazing.
that's just one of the small ways that my kids influence my writing is they ask for stories and stuff here and there, but
Mm.
because I'm older now, I can look back and kind of experience their growth alongside them. I can
Yeah.
see how different things affect kids, and then I can put that into my stories,
Mm.
like different experiences, what decisions they might make if they're faced with this dilemma and stuff like that.
It's lovely. That's amazing. That's lovely. Thank you for sharing. Now let's talk about inspirations and ideas, which is one of the amazing things that, strike me the most when it comes to our authors, our writers like yourself, you know, get the inspiration towards writing their books. I've always been fascinated, surprised, taken aback by our authors, especially novelists like yourself, sit down and craft long sentences and bring words together in a way that it eventually makes a great novel. And this always leaves me thinking about how exactly they got their ideas and inspiration. Now as far as writing is concerned, I'd love to ask you too, how do you get the inspirations and ideas for your books? Where did they come from?
Kind of a tough question to answer because it just literally comes from everywhere.
Mm,
We've touched on how I kind of got back or got into writing, and after I didn't read for a long time, then also how my
wow,
kids influenced my writing,
wow,
and just different places where I've been in the world. Um, I've been to, let's see, Canada, Mexico. I live in the US, and I've
yeah,
also been to Ethiopia. So you have the geographical locations and what they look like, but then you also have the cultural and society of the people in that area. And every area is different. I mean, you go from one city to the next. And Peter, you and I were just talking about languages before we started recording, and it's just different dialects, different, everything's just different. And to
yeah,
be able to see that, you can build a much, I don't know, a much sharper universe, a much sharper, more
absolutely,
imaginative world.
yeah.
And there's a lot of inspiration. You just gotta keep your eyes open so you can see it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I love that. I agree with you on that. That's quite great to know. And thank you for sharing how your inspiration and ideas come to be. Thank you. And picking up from your answer to how you get your inspirations, I would also like to ask you, how do you make time for writing? And also, as a traveler that you are, what countries have you visited and how do they influence your writing? Would you like to share that a bit too?
Yeah, making time for writing is kind of hard
Mm,
with a day job and everything. So usually I get up earlier than I need to, and I spend, I don't know, half an hour to an hour writing, editing, doing whatever it takes to, fill that time to make progress on what I'm working on. Um, and then, like I mentioned, I've traveled to a number of different countries, and one of the things that really kind of sticks in my mind is different geographical locations have different geography. I know that
mm,
sounds redundant saying it that way, but if you want this part of your world, say you're not writing in the Earth, the universe that we have, but you're in a galaxy far, far away, for example,
yeah.
and this part of the world to look like, I don't know, the Sahara Desert, and another part to look like the Rocky Mountains. But then
Mm,
you also want a rainforest. Well, it really helps if you've been there to just be able to describe it and figure out what issues the people that live there are going to have to deal with just on
wow.
a natural disaster, possible natural catastrophe,
Mm,
or just the normal everyday. Okay, the weather is hot and humid, or the weather is dry and parched. Um, Maybe there's lots of clouds. Maybe there's not much. Maybe
mm,
there's a monolith or a mountain range that causes some strange weather patterns. Um, and then languages. So, without getting too far into this, one thing I love about Stephen King's novels
yeah.
is his character and just the way he tweaks little bits of language that a character says, a little bit of that dialogue to really hone in on a geographical location. And me having traveled and being able to hear different dialects and people talking different languages, I've kind of started to pick up on that, and I'm trying to work that into my writing. It's a work in progress, so I'm not perfect at it, but
Mm.
I definitely look forward to learning more about just the little things here and there that make that location just feel like that location when it's on a page.
That's actually very true because, mere looking at it, traveling, it's a very, like most people would say, traveling is part of education, fine. And again, as a
Oh,
writer, it's one of those things that can even give you ideas and inspiration. You're going to a new place, you find a different culture, you find a different communication, a different environment. I can't, if it's me, I'll be tempted to write. Even mere passing, yeah, even if I should stay in a train or I'm inside a car and I'm looking at the outside world as a car is moving, I would be, tempted to pull up what's in my head and start writing. So all of these things actually, yeah, it obviously do contribute to writing. So I do agree with you on that. Now traveling inflects to writing. That's quite lovely to know. Thank you for sharing.
yeah.
Yeah. And apart from the books we've mentioned so far, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on? If you have samples there, I'd love you to show to the camera just so we can see.
Yeah, so we've been talking mostly about The Trouble with Dragons and Strangers, which
Yeah,
is book one of
beautiful
the Star
cover.
Sky series.
Yeah.
And also, just on the first of this month of recording this, I released the second book, which is A
Wow,
Journey of Skies. And this
beautiful.
is a series that's going to have four books in total. Um, Book three is going to be The Cycle the Shadow Came, and book four is A Constellation in Ashes.
Oh,
But apart from the Star Sky series, I also have two short stories out that I've released in ebook and audiobook format.
wow.
They are A Unicorn Named Nothing, which is just kind of a fun. There's a bit of a didactic aspect to it of
Mm,
teaching, but it's fun. A lot of fun characters, and then I also have a science fiction short story out called
Wow.
Remember.
Wow.
And that kind of delves into the moral question of clones and cloning and stuff like that.
Hmm. Wow, that's
And I've
quite
got,
amazing.
yeah, tons of books in my notes that I want to write. I'll get to hopefully all of them eventually,
Yeah,
but more on that later.
it sounds like you have quite a lot of work ongoing, really. I hope you find some times to sleep.
Yeah, there are times where sleep is sacrificed at the altar of writing, but no, I'm still alive. I'm not
Yeah.
sleep.
That's quite amazing, really. That's quite lovely. I'm really inspired by your answers to this question. So thank you. Thank you for mentioning. And now, could you tell us what publishing is like for a published author like yourself? Because I know that with different authors, they have different, take on what they consider publishing as and their experiences, etc. Now, are there
Mhm.
any challenges you've encountered in the process of writing your books and also ever since it got published?
I've taken uh, what's becoming a more popular route in publishing. So
Yeah.
I self-publish everything, and there's so many different choices you can make. Probably the hardest thing I had or dealt with when I went to self-publish was just choosing what avenue do I want to take, which distributor do I want to use, how many
Mm,
do I want to use, and then after that, choosing who do I want them to distribute to.
mm,
Um, so that was probably the hardest thing looking at getting into self-publishing. And now
yeah.
that I have self-published, I feel like I'm just going to be beating a dead horse here. But the uh, the marketing, the getting visibility for a self-published author is
Yeah.
difficult.
Yeah.
So I'm still trying to figure that out. I work on content marketing. That's my main focus. Right now, I'm only on Facebook, which you can find me at Molecules of
Mm,
Story, TM Bennett. Um, but from there, a lot of authors have good success with running ads like Amazon ads or Facebook ads or other social media ads. I
yeah.
haven't done that yet, but yeah, it's a learning process, and the more you do it, the more you learn, and you really don't learn unless you do it. So it's just kind of one of those
Yeah.
things where you got to choose to make the step or the leap off the cliff and just go for it.
Hmm. Wow, that's quite amazing, really. I love your take on that. I love your take on that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you. And as a published author, I love to ask you, what sort of advice do you have for struggling writers who are still struggling with writing and publishing a book in your genre? What would you advise people in this category?
Uh, my advice would be don't give up. Just
Yeah.
keep at it. If all you can give or devote to writing every day is 10 minutes, then that's 10 minutes of progress. Even if you got 2 words written and deleted 3, you're
Mm,
making progress. And then
yeah.
maybe the next day you'll write 150 words and only delete 2 or something. But every step forward, no matter how small, is progress.
Mm,
Just remember that.
yeah. Yeah. That's great. Thank you. Thank you. That's a very good advice. And I'm hoping that viewers, including myself, would love to utilize it. Yeah. Timothy, before we call it a day today, is there anything that you'd love to share with the viewers about your books that we did not mention in this interview and you'd love the viewers to know? Anything?
I think we covered it pretty well. The Star Sky series is a young adult series.
Yeah.
It starts off kind of like, I almost hate making this comparison, but just like Harry Potter, the Harry Potter series started off with him being young and the stakes being real low, and it just kind of progressed and stakes got higher and the series got a little bit darker. That's the
Mm,
same for my series Star Sky. It starts off with a little bit more of a juvenile take on stuff and a little bit more of storms being, like I said before, in the natural realm, and then everything moves more internal, and there's a lot more internal conflict, and things get a little bit darker, and there's moral questions that are asked that the main character has to answer. But
mm,
if he answers them the way that he wants to answer them, then he puts himself right in the crosshairs, just right alongside his enemies. So he's got quite a bit of struggle there and decisions that he's got to make.
That's great.
Um, yeah,
Yeah, that's amazing. And on what platforms are they available on for purchase? Just in case we have some interested viewers watching.
yeah. In short, there's too many to list, but anywhere that you buy your books online, and especially like Amazon and Barnes and Noble are good.
Yeah,
Um, you can find them just about anywhere. You'll probably have to put in the title followed by TM Bennett just to make sure it pulls up, right at the top.
that's
Um,
great.
yeah, and then
Yeah.
I'm always looking for reviews and ratings.
Yeah, yeah.
Your help.
And I left a link in the discussion part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Timothy Bennett's books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles and also on other platforms. So thank you so much, Timothy, for accepting the invitation to be featured on P English Literature. It's awesome having this conversation with you.
Yeah, thank you. It's been an honor.
Absolutely, it's my joy as well. Thank you for coming on.